As the elders say, not every hand that wipes your tears truly wishes you well. True strength is not in following the heart when it is weak, but in guarding one's character even when no one is watching. Because a moment of emotional weakness can destroy a lifetime of peace. My amazing viewers, thank you for your time and love. Please help this channel grow by liking and subscribing to my channel. God bless you richly. After that night when Diana and Mr. Adams crossed the line they should never have crossed, life in the Adams house changed in ways no one could see from the outside. At first, Diana had expected to feel terrible guilt. She had expected sleepless nights and a troubled conscience. But strangely, that feeling did not last long. Instead, something else replaced it. A dangerous attachment. Mr. Adams treated her with a level of attention she had never experienced before. He listened to her, comforted her, and always seemed to know exactly what to say whenever she felt lonely or worried. Slowly, Diana began comparing him to Michael. And the comparison did not favor her husband. In her heart she began thinking things she never imagined she would think. Sometimes, when she lay awake at night, a troubling thought crossed her mind. If only life had been different. Meanwhile, Mr. Adams was equally captivated by Diana. Her youth, her beauty, and the attention she gave him made him feel alive again in ways he had not felt for years. As the elders say, an old fire can burn fiercely when fresh wood is added. And Diana had become that fresh spark in his life. Months passed, and their secret relationship grew deeper. What began as a moment of weakness slowly turned into a habit. Whenever Mrs. Adams went to church meetings or visited neighbors, Diana and Mr. Adams spent time together. They spoke in whispers. They laughed in secret. And slowly, a frightening idea began creeping into their conversations. One evening Mr. Adams sighed deeply and said, "Sometimes life would be easier if certain problems simply disappeared." Diana looked at him carefully. She knew exactly what he meant, even though he did not say the words directly. And though she never spoke it aloud, a thought passed silently through her mind. What if Michael never came back? It was a thought that frightened her. But it also lingered. Years passed, and time moved on. The mystery surrounding Michael slowly faded into the background of life. There were still occasional letters confirming that he remained in prison abroad, but the family had little power to change his situation. Mrs. Adams continued praying faithfully for her son. But Diana and Mr. Adams had quietly moved on with their secret lives. And strangely, Mrs. Adams seemed to relax again. Whatever suspicions she once had slowly faded. Diana behaved respectfully around her. Mr. Adams acted like the same calm old man he had always been. They had learned to be careful. Very careful. As the saying goes, the longest secrets are the ones hidden in plain sight. Then one morning, years later, something unexpected happened. A taxi stopped in front of the Adams house. A thin man stepped out slowly, carrying a small bag. His clothes were worn. His face looked tired, but his eyes were familiar. It was Michael. After years in prison, he had finally been deported back home. When Mrs. Adams saw him standing at the gate, she screamed with joy. "My son!" She ran toward him and hugged him tightly, tears streaming down her face. Mr. Adams forced a smile, though his heart pounded uneasily. Diana stood frozen near the doorway. Her mind raced wildly. Michael was alive. Not only alive, he was home. But something about him had changed. The confident young man who once left to conquer the world had returned as a man broken by hardship. He had no money, no job, no plans, just the small bag in his hand. Life became difficult after Michael's return. He struggled to find work. His confidence had been damaged by years behind prison walls. Sometimes he sat quietly in the house staring into space. Meanwhile, Mr. Adams still controlled most of the family finances, and Diana still depended heavily on him for support. Ironically, Michael's return did not end the secret relationship. Instead, it complicated it, because Diana and Mr. Adams had grown used to their hidden world, and they were not ready to give it up. Several months later, Diana noticed something strange about her body. She felt tired more often. Food smells suddenly bothered her. One morning she rushed to the bathroom feeling nauseous. Her heart began beating faster. A terrible possibility entered her mind. Days later, after confirming her fears, Diana sat quietly on the edge of her bed. Her hands trembled. She was pregnant. The room felt suddenly smaller. Because now a terrifying question stood in front of her. Who was the father? Michael had returned home months earlier. But her secret relationship with Mr. Adams had also continued during that time. Diana pressed her hands against her face. Her thoughts raced. If the baby belonged to Michael, then everything might remain peaceful. But if the baby belonged to Mr. Adams, then the secret that had slept for years could explode and destroy the entire family. As the old proverb says, no secret stays buried forever when a child is involved. When Diana finally gathered the courage to tell the family that she was pregnant, the news spread through the house like wildfire. Mrs. Adams was the first to shout with joy. "My son," she exclaimed, clapping her hands. "God has finally wiped away our tears." After everything the family had gone through, the prison ordeal, Michael's return with nothing but the clothes on his back, this baby suddenly felt like a new beginning. Mrs. Adams hugged Diana tightly. "You have brought light back into this house, my daughter." Michael, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, also managed a small smile. Life had not been kind to him since he returned. Jobs were hard to find, and the world seemed to move forward while he struggled to catch up. But the thought of becoming a father stirred something hopeful inside him. He placed his hand gently on Diana's shoulder. "Maybe this child will change everything," he said softly. Diana forced a smile, but inside her chest, her heart beat like a drum in a silent room. Because while everyone celebrated the pregnancy, only she and Mr. Adams knew the terrifying possibility hiding behind it. From the moment the pregnancy was announced, Mr. Adams began showing extraordinary care toward Diana. At first, no one questioned it. After all, people believed he was simply excited about becoming a grandfather. But slowly, his attention became impossible to ignore. He made sure Diana never lifted anything heavy. Whenever she tried to carry groceries, he would rush over. "No, no, my dear," he would insist firmly. "Leave that for me." Sometimes he even scolded Michael. "You should be the one taking care of your wife properly," he said one afternoon. Michael scratched his head awkwardly. "I'm trying, Dad, things are just difficult right now." Mr. Adams sighed deeply and shook his head. A man must stand strong for his family. The words stung Michael more than he showed. Because the truth was obvious to everyone. Michael had returned home broke and struggling, while his aging father still held the financial power in the household. And slowly, Mr. Adams began taking over responsibilities that should have belonged to Michael. Mr. Adams often took Diana to the market himself. He bought her fruits, vegetables, and expensive food that he claimed were good for pregnant women. "Eat well," he would say kindly. "The baby must grow strong." He also bought new clothes for her. Loose dresses, comfortable shoes, soft pillows. Mrs. Adams watched all this with admiration. "My husband has the heart of gold," she once told a neighbor proudly. Not every man cares so much about his grandchild before it is even born. But behind Diana's polite smiles, something else was happening. Every act of kindness from Mr. Adams reminded her of their dangerous secret. Sometimes when their eyes met briefly across the room, a silent understanding passed between them. And both of them knew the same terrifying truth. The baby might not be Michael's. As Diana's pregnancy grew more visible, people in the neighborhood began talking. Some praised the family, others whispered quietly, because they noticed something strange. Mr. Adams seemed almost too involved. He accompanied Diana everywhere. Sometimes they sat together on the veranda for long conversations while Michael wandered around looking for work. One afternoon, two women passing by the gate murmured to each other, "That old man is very protective of his daughter-in-law." The other woman nodded thoughtfully. "Well, maybe he is just excited about his first grandchild. Still, whispers have a way of spreading like wind through dry grass. And rumors often grow where curiosity lives." Meanwhile, Michael struggled silently. He applied for jobs every week but rarely received responses. Sometimes he returned home late, tired and discouraged. One evening he walked into the house and found Mr. Adams arranging fruits for Diana on the table. "Make sure she eats these, Mr. Adams said seriously. Michael nodded. "Thank you, Dad." But deep inside, a painful feeling grew. He was supposed to be the man of the house. Yet somehow his father seemed to be filling that role instead. As the proverb says, when a tree falls, smaller plants quickly take its place. Michael did not realize it yet. But something far more complicated than pride was growing under that roof. As the months passed, Diana's fear slowly increased. Every time she looked at her growing stomach, a question echoed in her mind. Who is the father? Some days she tried to convince herself the child belonged to Michael. Other days she was not so sure. And whenever she saw Mr. Adams watching her quietly, her heart tightened with anxiety. Because if the baby resembled him, everything could collapse. Finally, after months of waiting, the day arrived. Diana went into labor early in the morning. The house became a whirlwind of activity. Mrs. Adams prayed loudly. Michael rushed around nervously. Mr. Adams remained strangely calm. Hours later, the cry of a newborn baby filled the hospital room. "It's a boy," the nurse announced. Mrs. Adams burst into tears of joy. Michael laughed with relief. "A son," he whispered proudly. The nurse gently placed the baby into Diana's arms. But before Diana could fully admire him, she noticed something strange. Mr. Adams, who had been standing quietly beside the bed, leaned closer to look at the child. For a moment, his face froze, because the baby's features were unmistakable. The shape of the nose, the curve of the lips, even the tiny wrinkles on the forehead. They looked exactly like Mr. Adams. At first, no one spoke. Then Mrs. Adams laughed joyfully. "Look at him," she said. "He looks just like his grandfather." Michael smiled proudly. Yes, strong family genes. But Diana felt the blood drain from her face. She looked at Mr. Adams. Their eyes met for a brief moment. And in that silent glance, both of them realized the same terrifying truth. The child had arrived, and with him, a secret that might not stay hidden forever. The baby's arrival filled the Adams house with excitement. For the first time in a long while, laughter returned to the home. Mrs. Adams moved around happily, singing old lullabies as she prepared warm baths for the child and soft meals for Diana. "This boy has brought life back into this house," she often said proudly. Michael, though still struggling with his finances and his pride, seemed happier whenever he carried the baby in his arms. Sometimes he would sit quietly, staring at the child's face with wonder. "My son," he whispered one evening, gently rocking the baby. But there was something else, happening quietly in the background. Something small, something people noticed but did not speak about openly. The baby looked remarkably like Mr. Adams. At first, everyone laughed about it. Mrs. Adams was the first to say it. Look at that forehead, she exclaimed joyfully one afternoon. That is exactly how your father looked when he was a baby. Michael chuckled. Well, they say grandchildren often resemble their grandparents. Mr. Adams forced a calm smile and nodded slowly. Yes, family blood is strong. But Diana felt a knot tighten inside her stomach each time those words were spoken. Because she knew the resemblance was not ordinary. It was too clear, too obvious. Mr. Adams became even more attentive to Diana and the baby. He insisted on buying the best baby clothes. Whenever the baby cried at night, he would sometimes be the first person to appear at the door. Is everything all right? He would ask. He even began carrying the baby around the compound proudly. Neighbors passing by the gate often greeted him. Congratulations, Mr. Adams, one man shouted. You must be proud of your grandson. Mr. Adams smiled broadly. Very proud. He lifted the baby slightly. Look at this strong boy. People often laughed. He really looks like you. Someone would say jokingly. Mr. Adams laughed along with them. But inside his chest, his heart beat a little faster each time. Because every compliment carried a hidden danger. For Mrs. Adams, the baby became the center of her world. She loved sitting beside Diana while the child slept. Children are gifts from heaven, she would say gently. Then she would look closely at the baby's face and smile. See those eyes? Diana forced a calm expression. Yes, they look just like your father-in-law's eyes, Mrs. Adams said happily. Diana swallowed quietly. The comment struck her like a small stone in her shoe, something that seemed harmless but slowly became uncomfortable. Still, Mrs. Adams never suspected anything unusual. To her, the resemblance was simply a beautiful sign of strong family blood. As the old saying goes, a grandmother sees blessings where others see questions. Outside the house, however, small whispers began floating through the neighborhood. It started harmlessly. Two women standing near the roadside one afternoon watched Mr. Adams walking with the baby. One of them laughed softly. That baby looks exactly like him. The other nodded. Yes, I noticed that too. Maybe the grandfather's blood is just very strong. The second woman replied thoughtfully. Well, sometimes children surprise us. They both laughed and continued their conversation. But gossip, once started, rarely stops. Soon several neighbors had made the same observation. Every time Mr. Adams carried the child, someone commented on the resemblance. And each comment, though spoken lightly, planted another tiny seed of curiosity. Diana began noticing the whispers. Whenever people looked at the baby, they smiled, but sometimes their eyes lingered a little too long. She tried to convince herself that she was imagining things. But the fear remained. At night when the house was quiet, she often sat beside the baby's cradle watching him sleep. The soft light of the room revealed the child's features clearly. And every time she looked closely, she saw Mr. Adams. The same shape of the nose. The same strong jawline. Even the same small wrinkle between the eyebrows when the baby frowned. Her heart would begin beating faster. As the elders say, a hidden truth often speaks through the face. Michael loved his son deeply. But even he began noticing the constant comments from people. One afternoon he laughed with his father in the sitting room. Everyone keeps saying the boy looks like you. Mr. Adams smiled casually. That is a good thing. Michael nodded. Yes, it means the Adams blood is strong. Then he added jokingly, maybe he will grow up stubborn like you too. They both laughed. But later that night, as Michael watched the baby sleeping, he studied the child's face carefully. Something about the resemblance was very strong. Still, he pushed the thought away quickly. Because suspicion is a dangerous guest in a family. Life in the Adams house continued peacefully on the surface. The baby grew stronger each week. Mrs. Adams remained happy and proud. Michael kept searching for ways to rebuild his life. And Mr. Adams continued showing great care for Diana and the child. From the outside, everything looked like the picture of a happy family. But beneath the quiet routine, a secret slept quietly. Years passed and the little boy grew into a lively child who filled the Adams house with laughter. Mrs. Adams loved him deeply. Michael adored him. And Mr. Adams treated him with a strange kind of pride that people often joked about. "Look at them," neighbors would say. "The boy walks just like his grandfather." Everyone laughed, but Diana always felt uneasy whenever those words were spoken. Because deep inside her heart, the truth still frightened her. Yet life continued peacefully, until the day everything changed. One evening the boy suddenly became very ill. At first it looked like an ordinary fever. But within hours his condition worsened. His body became weak, and he struggled to breathe. Michael panicked immediately. "We must take him to the hospital." They rushed the child to the emergency unit. Doctors quickly began examining him. After several tests, one of the doctors returned with a serious expression. "The child has lost a lot of blood," he explained. "He needs an urgent blood transfusion." Michael did not hesitate even for a second. "Take my blood," he said quickly. "I am his father." The doctor nodded and sent him for testing. A short time later the doctor returned looking puzzled. "Mr. Michael," he said carefully, "your blood is not compatible." Michael frowned in confusion. "That's impossible. I'm his father." The doctor adjusted his glasses and continued. "There is something else." Michael felt his chest tighten. "What is it?" "The child's genotype is AS." Michael stared at him. "And," the doctor replied calmly, "our records show that both you and your wife have A genotype." The room fell silent. Michael tried to process the information. That doesn't mean anything, right?" he asked nervously. The doctor spoke gently. "If both parents are A, it is medically impossible for the child to be AS." Michael felt the ground beneath him begin to shake. Meanwhile the doctors insisted they needed blood quickly. The boy's condition was getting worse. Mr. Adams suddenly spoke up. "Test my blood," he said. Everyone looked at him. "You're old," Michael said. "Are you sure?" Mr. Adams nodded firmly. "Just test it." Minutes later the result came back. The doctor looked surprised. "Your blood is a perfect match." Michael felt something cold move through his body. He forced a smile. "Good. Let's save the boy." But inside his mind, a storm had already begun. The blood transfusion saved the child's life that night. Everyone returned home relieved. But Michael could not sleep. The doctor's words echoed in his mind again and again. If both parents are A, the child cannot be AS. He began remembering the whispers from neighbors. The comments about the boy looking exactly like Mr. Adams. The strange closeness between his father and Diana over the years. The pieces of the puzzle slowly began fitting together. But Michael needed proof. Without telling anyone, Michael secretly took a sample of the child's hair. A few days later he visited a laboratory. "Run a DNA test," he told the technician quietly. The waiting period felt like years. Finally the results arrived. Michael sat alone in the laboratory office while the technician handed him the report. He opened the envelope slowly. His hands trembled. Then his eyes froze on the result. Probability of paternity: 0%. Michael was not the father. His heart felt as if it had stopped beating. That night the Adams house became the stage of a storm. Michael slammed the report on the table. "Diana," he shouted. His voice shook the entire house. Diana walked in nervously. "What is wrong?" Michael's eyes burned with anger. "Explain this." He threw the DNA report toward her. Diana's hands trembled as she read it. Her face turned pale. "Michael, who is the father?" he roared. Before she could answer, Mr. Adams stepped forward slowly. I am. The room went silent. Michael stared at his father in disbelief. Mr. Adams spoke again. The boy is mine, and my blood will not wander in the streets. Those words broke something inside Michael forever. Mrs. Adams had been standing quietly near the doorway. She had heard everything. Tears slowly rolled down her face. But she did not scream. She did not argue. She simply turned around. Then she walked toward the door. Michael followed her. Before leaving the house, he looked at his father one last time. You are no longer my father, he said, coldly. And with that, they left. Life took different paths for everyone. Michael worked tirelessly. Slowly he rebuilt his life. Years later he became successful and wealthy. He eventually married a woman who respected him and brought him peace. Meanwhile, Diana believed she had escaped punishment. She continued living in the Adams house with Mr. Adams and the boy. But life has a way of collecting its debts. Years later, tragedy struck again. The boy suddenly fell sick and died. The house that once echoed with laughter became silent. Mr. Adams aged rapidly after the loss. One evening he sat quietly and spoke to Diana. We made a terrible mistake. His voice was filled with regret. There is nothing binding us together anymore. He looked at the empty room where the child once played. Your husband has moved on with his life. Then he said quietly, you should leave this house. And for the first time in many years, Diana finally understood the heavy price of the choices she had made. Diana fell to her knees before Mr. Adams, tears streaming down her face. Please, don't send me away, she begged. Let me stay. Let me be your wife. Mr. Adams looked at her with tired eyes. The years of regret had already weighed heavily on him. No, he said quietly. I cannot marry you. Diana looked up in shock. Our culture forbids a man from marrying his son's wife, he continued. What we did was already a terrible wrong. I will not add another sin to it. Those words struck Diana like a hammer. She realized that the man she had sacrificed everything for would never truly belong to her. With nothing left, Diana walked out of the house empty-handed. No husband, no child, no home. As she walked down the lonely road, tears rolled endlessly down her cheeks. She cried bitterly. Had I known, had I only known. But it was too late. For as the elders say, a moment of secret pleasure can create a lifetime of regret. What's the lesson here? A moment of emotional weakness can destroy a lifetime of peace. Diana was not originally a wicked woman. She was simply lonely and longing for love, care, and the warmth of her husband. But instead of protecting her dignity and waiting patiently, she allowed comfort to grow into temptation, and temptation into betrayal. In the end, what looked like pleasure and security became sorrow, shame, and regret. As the elders say, not every hand that wipes your tears truly wishes you well. Lonely wives must remember that difficult seasons in marriage are temporary. Patience, self-control, and wise decisions protect a woman's future and her honor. Seeking comfort in the wrong place may bring momentary relief, but the consequences can last a lifetime. True strength is not in following the heart when it is weak, but in guarding one's character even when no one is watching. The end. Thank you so much for watching till the end. Your time means the world to me, and I don't take it for granted. Every view, every like, every comment, they encourage me more than you can imagine. I pray that as you support me, God will support you too. May favor find you. May joy never depart from your life, and may all your dreams come true. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Stay safe, stay blessed, see you next time. Bye bye.